Yo, what is up everyone, back here with another video. Today we're going to be doing a team report where I placed top 4 in the most recent ATX VGC Christmas tournament. It was a money tournament. We ended up losing in top 4 to some kind of bad luck, but it was still a really fun team to use, and I think it's a really solid team overall. And it's something that like the patrons on Patreon, which if you aren't already supporting there, make sure to check that out if you guys would like to. Already had access to for a while, and I decided to use the team this weekend because I thought it would be like a fun team to use, kind of enjoy. But yeah, no, it's a cool team. I really enjoyed overall like how it played. I think that if I were to make some changes, I'd probably be making certain things a little bit more like offensive, specifically the Garchomp. But overall, the team itself felt very cohesive, and it felt very like complementary of like how Rain is typically very offensive. And I did feel like I had a decent matchup into the Rain. The one thing I will say from this team, I felt like Arcanine was never used. But I think the reason why is just because I didn't really have any matchups where like I wanted to bring it. I did bring it a couple of times, but like majority of the time it was better to like be using the rain mode, right? But yeah. So we'll go through each mon individually. So if you guys don't know, pretty much the ATX VGC tournament, I started out the first day going 5-1. Let me actually see if I can pull up the battle fi for that for you guys. Battle fi, my tournaments. There you go. Okay, so if we go over here, you guys can see this was my top 4 loss. I did get a bit unlucky, but we'll go to the actual Swiss. So Swiss, basically, you'll see round 1, interesting enough, I actually started with a loss. I lost to the eventual second place person of the tournament, which, like, I could have beaten them anyways. I think I forget the exact specifics of the match. This was all streamed on my Twitch anyway, so you can check it out there. We started out with a pretty, like, not so great start, which is just taking a loss. After that, we win our second round, right? You guys can see we are down here. Then we win our third round. You'll see we're also still here, kind of still in the middle area of the tournament. Win again. Now we're starting to put ourselves kind of in the higher part of the bracket, right? Because this tournament was an X2 cut, right? So pretty much I just needed to ensure that we were like I was in a position where I could X2 cut, and then pretty much you'll see I ended up going 5-1. Now I'm gonna go through the individual matchups and tell you guys kind of how I approached it after the fact, but I just wanted to give you guys an idea of my tournament run. Then in the top cut run, you'll see that pretty much it was a 2-0, 2-0. Played versus Sohaib. Should have been 2-1, but obviously, it's how the game goes. He still played well, too. Like, he put himself in the position to be able to get the, like, situation I wanted. It was also my bad, too, because on the, like, turn where I actually ended up getting crit by Scald, I could have double targeted something to ensure... I could double target the Snorlax to ensure that even if I did get crit, it wouldn't cost me the match, but obviously that's hindsight, right? And then Sohaib went on to win the tournament anyways, so... and this is actually my opponent I lost to round 1 of Swiss. So I would have liked to get the rematch, but that's like how it goes in tournaments sometimes. But going into the actual team itself, right? With the Politoed, the Politoed was pretty much just there to set rain. I ended up finding that majority of the time, the core I brought was Zapdos, Garchomp, Scissor, and Ludicolo. Politoed rarely came, only in situations where I wanted to set the rain for myself, but this was a very rain-saturated tournament, so, like, I played a ton of teams with, like, rain on them, right? Like, I literally only played, like, rain, I think, in Top Cut. I didn't play any other teams. And then, during Swiss, I played a bunch of rain teams as well, right? So, it's a very popular archetype right now, so you kind of end up playing the mirror a lot, so... yeah, it was like interesting, right? Because you kind of have to play versus the archetype, and then you play the game of who's going to bring the rain setter. And every time my opponent brought the rain setter and I didn't, I usually won. And sometimes when I would bring the rain setter, it'd work just because I'd use it to surprise my opponent, but you don't really want to lead the rain setter majority of the time in the mirror. But yeah, so Politoed was pretty good. I think that Parasong never came into play. I don't know what it is. I was saying this on stream. I don't think I've ever seen a double protect like in this format. So Parasong's not even really that viable of like an end game because majority of the time it just feels like you'll never get that protect you need to like survive. Also too, like I think Encore might have been really good on Politoed over Parasong, so that might be a worthwhile change. Its bulk was pretty good. I actually really liked the amount of bulk this Politoed had. I didn't worry about investing into special attack or speed at all. Didn't matter to me. All that mattered to me was making sure that Politoed was able to actually take pretty much any hit, and it ended up making a big difference, right? Because Politoed could kind of just sit there in front of Ludicolo's. It could go for ice beams, kind of mess around and like kind of be disruptive to the opponent. And then over here, you'll see that we have our own Ludicolo. So this Ludicolo is maxed out in special defense. So you might be wondering, like, okay, what's the defensive investment for? So a -1 252 attack Scissor basically gets you max up to 88% of your health, which after Life Orb is not going to be enough to KO you. So basically, like, if you take Life Orb chip and then Scissor X scissors you and it's -1, you actually end up living and you don't die because of the Life Orb recoil chip you just took. So that's the main idea with the calc there. And also the HP prevents you from taking more from Life Orb. It optimizes it. The rest is just in the special attack, so it could do a bunch of damage, and then the rest just goes into speed, so it's not like, you know... so it's basically trying to be as fast as possible after you kind of do the rest of those calculations. Arcanine is pretty straightforward. I talked about this in the Arcanine video. I just like having them fast because you're pretty much able to just set quick safeguards, right? It didn't end up coming into play too much on the team because majority of the time, like, Arcanine wasn't coming because, like, it was usually a Rain Mirror. I think part of the reason why Arcanine wasn't used too much wasn't even the fault of, like, Arcanine itself. It was literally just because, like, the teams that I was playing against just weren't suited, or, like, Arcanine wasn't suited to deal with them, right? Which was specifically, like, the Rain teams. Overall, I would say Arcanine felt decent when I brought it. Like, every time I brought it, it felt kind of useful. Flare Blitz, obviously just giving you that strong fire coverage move to kind of deal and pressure, like, these grass types, other Pokemon. Safeguard, just giving you a way to stop status. I just wanted a way to reliably stop sleep and, like, burns on this team. Mostly because Breloom can be kind of annoying for Rain teams if you don't construct them the right way. Snarl also giving you the ability to reduce, you know, special attackers kind of being able to deal damage against you, and then just protect is a safe move to run. The bulk on Arcanine is pretty much just made so it can mostly just take physical hits better. As special hits, you know, you're snarling anyways, and also too, like, I feel like Intimidate coupled with, like, some extra defensive ease actually works out a lot better. So yeah, and then we have Metal Coat Scissor. Scissor was, like, the GOAT of this tournament. I feel like it was one of the best members of the team besides Ludicolo and Zapdos. Pretty much Scissor was just able to sit there and just, like, set up Swords Dances and pressure with Bullet Punch. And because you have Metal Coat, you're able to compensate for a little bit lack of the investment in attack. So you can get a little bit of extra special bulk out of it, so it could take special hits better. This ended up coming into play a lot. I was able to kind of eat up Scalds from, like, opposing Ludicolo, like, Life Orb Ludicolo in top 4. Also, too, you can live, like, not Life Orb boosted Hydro Pump from Ludicolo. Like, the extra special defense actually matters a lot, especially, too, if you're in Rain, and then the, like, a Fire type goes for a special Fire move, like, you can live a bunch of moves. So it's really nice. The extra special bulk does make a difference, and it definitely was something that I was happy about on the Scissor. The Metal Coat's really nice because it kind of allows you to compensate for that lack of damage, because, you know, you took a little bit out of the investment. And after Swords Dance, you're able to do a bunch of damage still. Metal Coat Scissor, I'm pretty sure I was Swords Dance up. I was +2, and I 2-shot a Life Orb Ludicolo with Bullet Punch. So it's pretty strong. It's a really good move. For Zapdos, so Zapdos was pretty much EV'd a bit differently than the Zapdos I used in the top 4 run in the Victory Road tournament. I wanted this one to be a bit bulkier, and I realized that running Roost and Zaplate's a little bit more optimal, mostly because you get recovery, and Zapdos can be a long-standing win con. Also, too, because you still get the same rough amount of damage out of it. Like, Zaplate, like, it's 1.2 power. Obviously, Specs is 1.5, but the benefit is you get to switch your moves, right? So you're not, like, locked into one move, and, like, you'd have to swap, right? Because, like, being forced to be locked into Discharge on a Rain team isn't good, but it's nice next to Garchomp. So, like, having the flexibility options is really nice, and Roost to heal yourself is really good. I'm definitely excited to see Zapdos get more usage. I think Zapdos is super good. I hope to see it more because I really think it's a strong Pokemon. But yeah, it's really cool. I hope it continues to see usage because it's just like a really neat mon. It's obviously modest, so it's gonna be doing a lot more damage. Kind of compensates for the lack of Specs, right? So you're able to do a bit more damage there. And like their electric moves were hitting really hard with Zapdos. I was doing some good damage. And like the combination of like Thunderbolt plus Bullet Punch to pin slots is really nice. Or even like Thunderbolt plus Hydro Pump on a slot, like it's so nice. So you can really pressure a ton of slots that way. The speed lets you outspeed Breloom by 1 point. It's just so I couldn't get Sleep Spam by Breloom if like I wanted to like Flare Blitz it and Volt Switch it, or like if I had Safeguard, obviously it would make a difference. But even if I wanted to do something like Bullet Punch it and Thunderbolt it, like sometimes it could get it depending on the Breloom spread. But yeah, just a lot of nice options there. You could even do something like Volt Switch with your Zapdos, outspeed the Breloom, go into Politoed, and then your Ludicolo Ice Beams it, right? So, like, there's a couple different things you can do there. Rest 1 into HP. It's optimized to take less from Sand and Hail, but also just general HP, so it can kind of just take some hits a bit better. It was really nice to have the extra HP bulk in there because it could take special hits a bit better, which means it was able to sit in front of a lot of things and actually do some work. So definitely enjoyed using Zapdos. I think it's one of the best Pokemon in the format from my usage of it and my experience. And then yeah, Garchomp's okay. I think Garchomp on this specific team works. You do need something to actually check the electric types like Raikou on opposing teams. You can't use Ludicolo's Hydro Pumps to kind of like wipe out Raikou's health really quickly. But sometimes you do want a ground type to kind of swap in and out against it. The one thing I will say about this Chomp, I do like the White Herb because the White Herb obviously allows you to prevent Intimidates. I think that was a great item choice on Garchomp since Life Orb wasn't available and it's on the Ludicolo. And it's definitely something I could see being run on Chomps a lot more. It allowed me to stay offensive with it and not worry. So, like, for example, like when an Arcanine comes in, like with other Chomps, you'll be forced to like Swords Dance or like, you know, just deal with it, right? But like with White Herb, like, no, you can just continue being offensive without having to waste a turn Swords Dancing. And it gives you space for Dragon Claw, so you can actually use Dragon Claw to like snipe stuff like Salamence, even Latios in certain positions, right? But yeah, it's just super nice. And then the rest just went into, like, Chomp wants to be max speed, so you can tie with other Chomps, and then it's just the rest into attack. The HP was optimized for Hail Chip, but like realistically, if you wanted to take out and just put into attack, you could do that too. It's just a preference I have, but that being said, like, if you would just want extra offense out of it, that might be a change I would make anyways. Like, even if I weren't, what's it called? Even if I were using this team myself, like, I might even change it to just be, like, 252 on Chomp, just because I found that, like, sometimes I was missing KOs by, like, a little bit, and the extra bulk was, like, nice in certain situations, but, like, stuff like Ice Beam, you're gonna die to anyways, right? So you might as well just have the extra attack investment, but the extra special bulk did help in certain situations where I was getting hit by like a water move in rain or something like that. But it's definitely worth considering investing a bit more into the attack stat. Didn't really have any specific calculations on this Chomp too, so obviously that kind of changes it too. But yeah, that's pretty much the team. I'm gonna actually pull up the paste here so you guys have it in front of you, so you guys have it. But pretty much you guys can see the synergy here. Oh, before I do that, actually. I want to talk through quickly the matchups I played, just so you guys can understand what my thought process was in each of them. Let's go to round 1. I'm going to just click on each of my rounds so I can kind of explain to you the matchup. Oh, actually... Oh, no, we don't have the open sheet, do we? Okay, we didn't get the open sheets until Top Cut, so I'm going to quickly explain what happened in Top Cut. And then you guys can check out the VOD on Twitch. I'll have it linked down below, or I'll have my Twitch link down below, so you guys can click on that and just look at the most recent VOD. And it'll have all the games with the team, so you guys can kind of see for the past, like, from yesterday and today. So you guys can see, like, kind of how it was played. But first, I played Rain Dragonite. So Ale had pretty much Dragonite. It was Banned Dragonite. It was... I can actually maybe even pull up the team. Let me see if I can pull that up in front of me, because that would actually be really nice. There we go. So this was his team. Pretty much... He used a very offensive Rain version. So, like, you'll see that pretty much all of his choices were centered around being offensive, besides, like, the Politoed. Pretty much what I just did here was I just made sure to be really aggro with my Zapdos and just deal a bunch of damage early. Like, I did Zapdos Garchomp lead game 1, and he led, like, Dragonite plus something. I forgot exactly what it was. And I just kind of, like, went full offensive. So in the Rain Mirror, you have two options. You could play it a bit more defensive, or you could play it a bit more offensive. I just chose to play pretty aggressive and just like pick stuff up quickly, right? You can pretty much spam Discharge with Zapdos. Sometimes click Protect next to your own Ludicolo if you let Ludicolo Zapdos. Go for Discharges, or even just go for, you know, Thunderbolt plus, like, whatever move from Ludicolo, right? Typically, in Rain Mirrors, you don't want to bring your own Rain Setter, because majority of the time your opponent's going to bring it for you, and if your opponent doesn't bring it for you, then, like, it's the same situation for them, you know what I mean? Like, it's not good for them either, so, either you guys both don't have a Rain Setter, which means you guys are on even footing anyways, or one of you has a Rain Setter, and, like, you're giving the other that potential advantage, unless you make sure to prioritize their Rainmon early, right? Because you can potentially just try and remove their Ludicolo, right, first, and then bring in the Rain, and then actually sweep them, and that's what I ended up doing, I believe. One thing of note, too, a lot of these Ludicolos ran Fake Out. It gives you a substantial disadvantage in the mirror. Having Protect is huge because you can prevent double targets into your Ludi, whereas like when you're running Fake Out, not only do you chip yourself, but you know, you kind of get the same benefit from Protect, I feel like. So, just something to note. Also, didn't have Wide Guard, so they couldn't stop Discharge, which was really nice. Now, going into the top 8, let me see if I can get that team up for myself. Juanma, yeah, I played versus Juanma next. Kind of similar composition. Mamoswine never came, which I was kind of scared about this thing coming, and it never ended up coming. But pretty much like Salamence, Raikou, Scissor, and Ludicolo was the bring every single game. And I ended up pretty much just game 1. I ended up utilizing Zapdos Discharge to like give me a win con back into the game. I was really behind after like a first couple turns. I think I missed a Hydro Pump or something that put me really behind in the game, and I managed to catch up by like getting a discharge paralysis on like Salamence. And again, you guys can see all these games on the actual Twitch VOD. But pretty much I ended up leveraging Zapdos. Like, Zapdos is key into every rain matchup. You should be leveraging it every single time. And it was able to put me in a position where I was able to win the game with, like, Scissor Zapdos endgame versus their Scissor. So it worked out pretty well because I was just able to spread a bunch of paralysis, which kind of gave me the out to really just get some extra damage down and, like, prevent KOs, stuff like that. But pretty much after that game 1, I ended up using the rain mode and just being really aggressive, and I just ended up running through the team. Sometimes that's what you gotta do. Game 1, you just don't bring the rain mode, and then your opponent adjusts off of it, and then you bring the rain mode and you sweep them. So it can be like that a lot of time. You just kind of want to know what you're doing in terms of being aggressive and doing what you can to like put on the offense. Then finally we played versus Sohybe, who pretty much had like another rain team as well. It was literally a rain team like top cut, right? Like there were so many rain teams. This match I'd say was the most like I guess frustrating out of the bunch. Like, and this is the thing with Pokemon, right? Like there's always luck involved, you know what I mean? And like we basically had the game set up so there was always going to be a turn 1 trade that looked favorable to Sohai, but it actually works out for me fine. And then pretty much it forces a read on turn 2, right? And game 3 basically I got the turn 3 read correct, which was that he wasn't going to fake out with Ludicolo, and I picked up his Specs Raikou for free. But the thing is that then I needed to actually land Hydro Pump on the Snorlax, and I needed to not get crit by Scald from his Ludicolo, because because he's running Scald, basically, he can't threaten as much damage onto my side as I can threaten onto his side, because Hydro Pump can actually pick up a lot more KOs than Scald does. Scald misses a ton of KOs, and because he's Fake Out, he can't protect, right? So it gives you a bit of an advantage in a lot of situations. Another thing too is that like his Scissor wasn't that useful in the matchup because it was running U-turn and not X Scissor, so it was forced to swap every single time he clicked it, right? So it was just kind of like a not great it was not very optimized for like the Rain Mirror, right? So pretty much like what the matchup became was like Pelipper Raikou into Garchomp and Zapdos. And basically with that turn, he has Scarf Ice Beam, so he can threaten Scarf Ice Beam onto my Chomp. And I have to call whether or not he goes for the Ice Beam. I got it wrong both times, but with the discharge, I was still in an okay position to win the game because I chipped the Raikou into Ludicolo Hydro Pump range. And if you guys are confused by this, it might be helpful to have the Twitch VOD up on the side so you guys can understand what I'm talking about. But pretty much like after I take out the Raikou, then it pins his back slots into needing to actually like they can't actually beat the Scissor because of the special bulk that I have on it to live like whatever hit, right? So the special bulk actually ended up making a really big difference in this matchup. It just, you know, obviously like you have certain things with Pokemon where like you need the certain things to happen to like be able to win. That being said though, if you look at this set, I would definitely make sure to look at all 3 games. It's still a really good set. Sohype's still a good player as well. When I talk about bad luck, I think people don't understand, like you can be upset about like the luck or like annoyed about the luck, but like in the end, like you always respect the player at the end, you know what I mean? Like it has nothing to do with like disrespecting the player or like not respecting the person playing the game. It's always like don't blame the player, you blame the game you play, you know, because in the end, like I had some parts of my run where I got lucky too, you know, and it's just how it goes. But yeah, so I went on to win with this team anyways. The ban Lax was actually really interesting in this matchup. It ended up putting in some work game 3, so it was kind of interesting to see. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the team overall. I found that like with like as a whole, right? Like the team itself felt very cohesive, and I felt like I could do a lot of different things into pretty much any matchup I played, right? I think majority of the time, I felt like I couldn't bring Arcanine a lot, but that was because I was playing so much Rain. And also, too, that Chomp probably could have been a little more offensive and done a little bit more. But hopefully that was a good overall kind of conclusion to the team. Some combinations that you guys can utilize with this team as well is the Garchomp and the Zapdos together. I use that lead a bunch. Also, the Ludicolo and the Zapdos lead, because you can go for a Volt Switch, you can go for an Ice Beam, or like Hydro Pump, you bring in Rain, you know, whatever. You have a lot of combinations there. Even something like Arcanine Zapdos was really nice yesterday as well. So just super cool team. I found that Scissor was like the most useful in terms of like coming every single game, and Ludicolo pretty much came every single game. So that's pretty much it for the video, guys. Once again, thank you for all the support on the YouTube. I incredibly appreciate it. Make sure to check out the Patreon if you guys are interested in getting access to these teams early. This rain team was literally posted like a week before this, so if you guys want access to like good teams earlier, I mean, this, you know, that's the place to do it. If you guys are interested in coaching and improving your game, make sure to check that out. And once again, guys, thank you so much for all the support. I incredibly appreciate it, and I will see you guys on the next video. Peace.